His LP, Tubular Bells, made him a millionaire, but with its success he became a recluse. Now, though, after a long break, he's back on the road and making music again.
This man became a pilot to conquer his fear of flying. He's on a journey to overcome other fears and to discover himself both as a musician and as a man.
Cockpit checks, harnesses tight, pedals adjusted, controls, free movement. This one. Throttle closed, battery on. Caution circuit breaker.
Oldfield became a millionaire after making one record at the age of 19. As he freely confesses, the experience nearly drove him mad. He knew his music was largely a product of his troubled emotions. 7 years ago, he was the goose that had laid the golden egg, and all he really wanted to do was fly away. Except he was afraid of flying too.
From the age of about 17, I became really frightened of flying when I was in the passenger plane. You know, go across to Europe to do concerts and things. I totally panic-stricken, and I wouldn't go in one. You know. The result of that was that I couldn't tour. If I can't go in an airplane, I can't go to America. I can't really travel. So it occurred to me, if I could do it, if I could find out how to do it, then I'd feel better about it. So I learned how to fly, and it worked.
His first record, Tubular Bells, recorded when he was 19, was a kind of emotional escape, a virtuoso orchestral solo which concentrated his mind on music for a whole year. The record sold 6 million copies, but soon after its release, Mike's mother died, and he retreated into the country to lead the life of a wealthy hermit. He even seemed to dislike the pop business itself. Looking back on his 5 years in rural exile, Mike Oldfield now sees them as a kind of imprisonment, with himself as both prisoner and jailer.
I was working in the studio. I got no need to be anything else but withdrawn. You know, I wasn't intentionally withdrawn. It's just my lifestyle at that time was withdrawn. I lived near Wales and worked in my house. But doing a tour like I'm doing now, when I have to communicate with last year it was 80 people, get them all to know, get them all organised, and make them to understand what I wanted them to do. Obviously, I've got to adopt a different attitude.
The change came in 1978 when Mike underwent a form of group therapy. It gave him the confidence to launch himself on a new career as a stage performer. He called his 1979 concert tour Mike Oldfield exposed. It was a coming out in more senses than one. For the first time in his life, he was facing packed houses of thousands of people. And in an attempt to reproduce the complex sounds of his records, he was also having to manage a group of 50 musicians, including an orchestra and choir.
It was a disaster financially. That was no joke. You know, I was in serious trouble.
So you lost a lot of money on that tour, didn't you? Have you any idea how much it was now?
Yes, well, altogether the tour cost around about £500,000.
And how much did you lose of that £500,000? Because you got some back, obviously, in box office.
Well, no, okay, so I must have lost personally about £250,000.
£250,000. It's
It was good.
quite a lot of money, that, isn't it, Mike? I mean, do you feel bitter about losing that amount of money?
Well, I look at it as among a lot of other ways of looking at it. It's an investment. The last tour was an investment in a touring project. If I did not tour at all now, I would be in serious financial difficulty because the money that I borrowed is, you know, the house is security for it and everything. So I have to tour this year and organise things better so that maybe not this tour, but maybe the tour after or the tour after that, then it will start to balance up.
He still has 47 acres of garden, including a private wood, but one wing of the house has a sitting tenant, and the neighbours are now well within earshot of his studio. But it's the kind of cosy arrangement he now seems to like.
I think people are quite nice, really. I used to be very afraid of people. I'm coming round to quite liking them.
Today he's putting that liking of people to the test. Mike's brought his new band to Bradford University for a rehearsal concert. The equipment, designed for vast European concert halls, dwarfs the stage. The audience may number less than 1,000, but it sounds much larger. Even now, with one concert tour behind him, Mike seems embarrassed by performing. He finds it painfully difficult to speak to his audience, rarely saying more than thank you. He prefers his music to speak for him. For this concert tour, as for his last, Mike has commissioned animated films to accompany his music. The images are projected onto a vast screen behind the musicians.
I've had it's not exactly a vision, but it's a picture in my mind of a specific clarity of imagery, which you find in surrealist paintings. I wanted to make one of those paintings come to life. And I happened to meet Ian Eames, who was able to do that. And so I thought, look, I want this to move, come to life. I want to show it around the back of my live concert. And you could do it perfectly.
The animations have taken 8 people 4 weeks to complete. The man who thought up the images is Ian Eames.
Well, it's simply taken from Escher's illustrations, which are experimenting with impossible situations. perpetual motion, waterfalls that come back to themselves, and people walking endlessly up staircases that begin at the end and end at the beginning. And we just find it exciting to experiment with a two-dimensional image, something which can only exist in two dimensions, and bring it closer to reality by putting it into three dimensions.
Is it meant to be a direct equivalent of the music or what?
Never. It can come out of the music originally as an idea, but in the final image, it's actually something which is open to interpretation, which relates to the music only loosely, and therefore leaves a lot for the spectator in terms of imaginative input.
I dream better flying, experiences of flying than I do in reality. Like in a helicopter. Most people have flying dreams when you really do fly. And I suppose I'm trying to experience that in my waking life.
The paradox facing Mike Oldfield is how to come down to earth in his everyday life while continuing to soar as a musician. He became a pilot so that he could conquer his fear of flying. Now he's learning how to enjoy the landings as much as the flight itself.
Flying really symbolises freedom, isn't it? And a bird is a symbol of the freedom of the spirit. Freedom from all your emotions, all your jealousies, all the things that in your everyday life that annoy you and get you down. There are some times, I'm sure for everybody, when you feel like in a morning like this, I walked out in the morning, it's really great to be alive. And you don't forget about all your problems. I've got billions of problems waiting for me in the rehearsal room when I get there. But moments like that, you don't think about it. And in music, I can express moments like that. I can make them last longer, and I can give them to other people.
As far as finances were concerned?
No, I lost a lot of money.
Next
question.
He's not going to tell me. I mean, you're talking in tens of thousands or more than that, or what?
Hundreds of thousands.
So a lesson learned very much the hard way, in a sense.
Yes.
You've been doing some warm-up gigs with your group, with your synthesizers and the temperamental synthesizers. And that. Has it been going well?
As far as audience reaction is concerned, it's been going very well indeed. We've given them a very good concert. So that part of it's been great. My own satisfaction in what I'm doing, I've been 50% satisfied.
Are you finding it easier to perform live nowadays than you did when you first had to march out on stage?
It's easier. Last year it was such a novelty, and we were very lucky with the balance of musicians and music that we had. We had the classical musicians on one side and the rock musicians on the other side, with me sort of halfway between them. And that was a formula that worked very well. This time, it's taking a lot more effort from me.